Good Saturday morning. Again, it's of the first week in ordinary time. And this is the calling of Matthew. It's a great text. So in Matthew, while he's a Jew, he's a bad guy. He's sold out to the Romans. In the ancient world, there was no forgiveness for these guys. They're the betrayers. So you want to really a badass sinner, it's got to be Matthew, okay? You have to see that, okay? All right? Levi, okay? I'm going to show it to you. Jesus went out along the sea, and all the crowd came to him and he taught them. Now, here's the key line. He says this, as he passed by. Now, this is important. Whenever you hear the word passed in New or Old Testament, it reflects the Passover. It's the moment in which the Lord visits. It's a sacred moment, okay? So it doesn't mean he was walking by, got nothing else to do with his time, okay? Pass by means this is I call it crisis moment. It's a moment you either choose or you don't choose. Christ is present to you. You either accept him or you don't. See, he's passing by. The Jews escaping Egypt. See, that's Passover. From death to life. The Passover from death to life, slavery to freedom. Watch. As he passed by, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the custom post. That tells you right there he's a betrayer. He's working for the Romans. Jesus said to him, follow me. That's your Passover. Think of Moses telling the Jews, follow me into the desert. Follow me into the desert, you see? And he got up and he followed Jesus. He got up and he followed him, which means he abandoned everything he had. But he also abandoned his slavery. See? While he was at table, now watch this. He goes to his house. While he was at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners sat with Jesus and his disciples. There were many who followed him. So who did he draw together? All the betrayers. All the betrayers. They came and ate in the table with Christ in the house, in Matthew's house. That's interesting. See, when you think of the Eucharist as the table of the Lord, all kinds of sinners there, including me. You see? See? Some scribes who were Pharisees saw that Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors. And he said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? What are you putting up with all these sinners for? These are public sinners. Jesus heard this and he said to them, this is a great line. This is a great line. Think of the church now, church in the world. Think of the Vatican Council. Jesus heard this and said to them, those who are well do not need a physician, but the sick do. I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners. And I think of John the 23rd, the Vatican Council was a council to heal the brokenness of the world. See? It was to call all those estranged, the so-called sinners, you see, the tax collectors and the sinners, the world, the fractionated world, back to the table. See? Christ is a physician of the soul, the great physician. And John the 23rd saw the church as the great physician of the world, by bringing the light and the medicinal light of wisdom, the wisdom of the gospel, bringing Christ to the world, the great medicine that heals the fractured world, the torn heart, the wounded world. And if the world's not wounded, I don't know what woundedness looks like. As I mentioned before, yesterday, day before, as first and foremost, the European world that had been ripped to pieces by two great wars, the product of their own radical secularization, in my opinion. Now, they sold out. They sold out their moral heritage and paid a devil of a price for it. Yeah. And then the emergence of the Soviet Union and China, huge, both philosophical and political powers of tremendous military might, who could easily conquer the world. So talk about the sickness of the world. Marxism, power, brutal use of power, nuclear weapons, et cetera, keep running it out. The Vatican Council was the attempt of the church to re-engage that world from within and to call it back to its wisdom, its foundational wisdom. that we all would eat at the table. See, sinners and saints all eating together. Remember, the disciples were there too, together. We are companions in life. We are not enemies. We are companions. We are companions. We heal from within, not from the force from without. I think that's a very important lesson. We have been able to survive the last 60 or 70 years, and in very large part by the use of force. The Cold War was a standoff between massive military and political powers, but it can't last. There has to be conversion of the heart. I see it in the fringes now. I think the recognition that power left to itself will not survive. There has to be healing from within, in our own communities, in our own houses, our own homes. But it's starting with our own communities, as it were, and extending to the great community of the world. I believe that. There has to be an internal conversional moment. And I think the church is the voice crying out, like John the Baptist in the desert. Make straight the way of the Lord. Make straight, open your hearts, be present the way Samuel was, and listen. Listen to the voice of the Lord, coming not only through the gospel and the testaments, but also the needs of humankind. There's not a singular voice, although the ultimate voice is the gospel. That is not a voice that is solely the voice, because the tears of the world are also the voice of a crying humanity. And the crying humanity is a voice to be heard. The church is the wisdom of the gospel preached and sacramentalized, but she's not the only wisdom. There is also the wisdom of the poor in their tears. There's the wisdom of history and the sciences of reflection and all the rest. The poets, the artists. The truth knows no home exclusively, though it has it predominantly in the person of Christ, predominantly so. But there is more to it than that too, way more to it than that. I believe that, or I wouldn't be a philosopher. I'd be a theologian, and I'm not a theologian, I'm a philosopher, because I know that there is wisdom out there. And what you have to be present to it, thank you, Samuel, and you have to listen. And so I try myself, and I believe the church tries. That's the Vatican Council, to listen to the world as well as to speak to the world. But one has to listen to it. I listen to my secular friends. I listen to the people I love so deeply who have abandoned the faith. I listen to them. Why? Because they are not excluded from truth. What they see and what they feel matters. And if I don't listen to them, I'm closing myself off to the fullness of Christ, which is the total suffering world. Not just the suffering Christians, it's the suffering world, the lonely, the betrayed, the barren, you see. I believe that. In some ways, I think my secular friends, my secularized friends, are more truthful. In many ways, more honest in their painfulness. I don't know. But I know to listen. And I listen with my heart as well as my head. And that is certainly the church of the Vatican Council, Second Vatican Council, a church that is listening to the world and proclaiming a vision of Christ that is the Christ, the healer, Christ, the physician, not the Christ, the monarch, but the physician, the true physician. I believe that. Physician to the world. A physician who heals through wisdom, the wisdom of Christ himself.